Greetings, ladies, gentlemen, and the rest of you. This is Jolly Scholar 888 with dispatch number 10, the global fascism trajectory and what we need to be looking for. I discussed this subject in the previous dispatch number 9, and I have a link to it below. It's CBDC plus SCS plus ESG. That's central bank digital currencies plus social credit scores plus the ESG, which is environment, social, and governance, equals tools for absolute control. It's the control of your behavior through the absolute control of your financial life. I want to take the time in this short dispatch to reiterate what is so important about these tools and why you should pay utmost attention to them whenever they come to your attention. And they will be coming to your attention. I'm sure you've at least heard of the ESG scores, and you will be hearing a lot more about them as they continue to arise within the public discourse. So we start with the CBDC. That's the central bank digital currency. I thought that the Bitcoin Express, it's the fellow that I quoted a bit in the last video, he did an exceptional expose on the subject, so I encourage you to see the video if you have the time. The link is below. Or just watch my video, dispatch number 9, in case you haven't already. But the central feature that you need to focus on is that you will not be able to spend your own money no matter where you attempt to spend it. The money itself will be tracked and controlled at the most granular level. The government can stop you from spending your own money at any specific location, a restaurant, a theater, an online store, or they can keep you from spending it anywhere at all. It is absolute control of your money. I cannot overestimate what this means to your individual freedom. It's quite simply the end of your freedom, because you will not be able to function in society at all. If you don't comply, if you don't bend the knee, you will be economically paralyzed. Now, I already discussed in the last video exactly what a digital currency is. So I really advise you to look back at that if you don't understand what a digital central bank digital currency is. What I'm pointing out is the dangers. I'm trying to reiterate the problems associated with these events that are happening right before us if you just keep your eyes open and look at the society, the social events as they unfold. So the SCS, this is the social credit score. It has already been implemented in China. And that was made possible precisely because China has implemented to varying degrees some type of experimental state digital currency. And currently, China is in the process of developing their own complete central banking digital currency. When that is finally rolled out, the Chinese Communist Party will have absolute control over the entire population's ability to function financially. But the CBDC, when implemented here in the United States, will enable a similar social credit score as an inherent feature without formally calling it that, at least in the beginning. They're probably not going to say we're establishing a social credit score, but they won't need to. We already have been experimenting with a crude version of the social credit score through the cancel culture and the deplatforming tactics deployed by big tech in conjunction with the Democratic Party. So it is essential that you remain alert and vigilant to whenever you see any legislative moves towards the creation of a national CBDC, and when you see it, you must voice loud and clear your opposition to it. Remember, the government and their lackeys will present the CBDC in terms of, first of all, convenience. And the CBDCs will be very convenient. And then they'll postulate number 2 as a tool to combat that go-to boogeyman of money laundering and illegal activities. After all, the banks don't want any competition in those areas. But don't fall for it. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and anyone who gives up freedom for convenience and for some fake law and order scam deserves their fate. Now for the ESG racket. ESG stands for, as we've described in previous videos, environment, social, governance. So with the environment, we have Save the Planet, the Save the Planet racket, compliance to environmental standards, the carbon footprint racket, which is basically an extortion racket. And we'll explain how that works. So first is environment. Then we have the social. That's the S in the ESG. That's the front door extortion racket. It's compliance to social responsibility standards. It's the BLM racket. We all know it's a racket now. And the social justice racket, where they force consultants come in. People like Al Sharpton used to do this. And they'll come into a large corporation and they'll say, well, you need to have consultation for social justice standards and for hiring practices, and you need to hire us. And of course, if you don't, well, the media is all on our side and you're going to be lambasted. So that's the S, but there's another part to this. So now we go to governance, compliance to company governance. It's a commissar in every corporate and company board. That's the back door. That's the extortion racket, how they get commissars, how they get their own people onto the board. So they're getting the companies both ways. They come in the front door with these social activists, and they're threatened by the social media outpour or outcry that could happen if they don't comply. If they have to force the company to acquiesce, then they buy up enough shares, and we'll get to that. And we're also going to get to who does this, right? Because that's very important. In fact, that's really the whole point. So, how is this done? Companies are given ESG scores according to their environmental impact or their carbon footprint and their dedication to social responsibility practices as outlined in the SEG standards publications. These companies are also rated for their internal administrative structuring that can ensure compliance with the environmental and social dictates. That's the governance part, the G. This can be achieved by hostile insertion of board members, as we just said, after the moneylenders have bought up enough stock to force their people in. This is the corporate version of the SCS. It's the global credit score applied to the business world. Large corporations and companies are given ESG scores, and those scores determine whether or not they can obtain capital and at what interest rates, or if they can qualify for funding at all. ESG functions exactly for corporate America as the social credit score functions for the Chinese individual citizen. And who devised this ingenious plan? BlackRock, of course. And they're also the transnational enforcement agency. This too was covered in the previous dispatch, and I've provided links below. So BlackRock, remember, is the organization, the hedge fund corporation, that came up with the ESG. And you have to wonder, why would they do that? So make no mistake, though, BlackRock openly threatened any company that would not or could not bend the knee. But I will include in my next dispatch information on companies and even entire states here in the United States that are fighting back and what you can do to resist this nefarious movement towards global financial fascism. Remember, BlackRock controls more money than the GDP, the gross domestic product, of the entire United States. And they are currently going into partnership with the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, that's incredible, isn't it? Do you see what we're up against? Now, for an excellent expose on Larry Fink and BlackRock, I highly recommend a video by Sheldon Evans. I quoted him a lot in my last video, dispatch number 9. So if you want something really in-depth about BlackRock, again, you can go to my video, dispatch number 9, or you could go to Sheldon's video, and I'll have both links below. But who is going to actually engineer and initiate this trajectory here in the United States? First of all, is the Federal Reserve, which is not a government agency in case you didn't already know that. The Federal Reserve is a consortium of banks that are supposed to back the US dollar and determine the fiscal banking strategies for the country. So it will be the Federal Reserve that actually develops and implements the US central bank digital currency. And of course, as we already saw in the last video, the Federal Reserve has an intimate relationship with, who else? BlackRock. The Federal Reserve goes to BlackRock for financial advice and for bailouts. And BlackRock is a private transnational money management, read controller, organization, a globalist operation. They have no allegiance to the United States whatsoever, even though they've originated here. The same organization that has already begun to take control of the entire Western financial system through massive financial extortion. And of course, they do so under the sheepskin of protecting the environment and to implement social justice. You know, the kind of social justice the Soviet Union deployed and the kind that Adolf Hitler did. And of course, Mao, who can forget Mao. These two organizations alone, the Federal Reserve and BlackRock, could transform our republic into an unrecognizable globalist fascist state, with or without the Democratic Party, with or without Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum. But actually, they're all working on this project together. You're not surprised, are you? WEF, World Economic Forum, central bank digital currencies. I think I've heard something like that. Something about that somewhere. People, you've got to wake up. I mean, really. Half the nation is still asleep. Oh, that's right. Maybe you've got gender dysphoria. It's understandable. So believe it or not, I am getting better at these short dispatches. That's it for dispatch number 10. Please stay alert to anything related to CBDCs and fight it on every front that you can, as well as anything that has to do with ESG and BlackRock. Never give in to cancel culture. Whenever you do that, you are helping to pave the way for a national social credit score. And it goes without saying, never vote for the Democratic Party. They are not an American party anymore. They are a globalist party. And a healthy America is a problem for them, a serious problem. Fight the Democratic Party at every possible front. Hashtag defund the Democratic Party. Hashtag defund BlackRock. And of course, hashtag abort Planned Parenthood.